You are listening to The Main Phase, episode 102, a Magic the Gathering podcast bringing you current news and strategy to your favorite game. In this episode, we discuss the results of Grand Prix Milwaukee, follow up on our opinions of Ultimate Masters, and give a brief glimpse of the future. Stay tuned.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Main Phase. This is episode 102 of our podcast. This is Jeremy with Land Say Go, joined by my co-host Debo.
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
We're going to cover a number of topics for you today, starting with GP Milwaukee and the game-winning deck there. We've also got Ultimate Masters right around the corner, coming out December 7th. And then finally, we'll talk to you a little bit about our plans with our studio and our upcoming streaming schedule.
So, GP Milwaukee happened recently.
Yeah, it did.
And this actually has a lot of really good diversity in the deck list, at least in my opinion. Different than what Pro Tour had, right? Pro Tour was 6 of the top 8 were red, white aggro.
If I could revisit, I did say that we would not see Tempest Gen.
Yep, that's true.
I did also say that we would not see mono blue tempo in the top 8 deck lists, and we did not. Nowhere close, in fact.
Yeah, nowhere close. You are absolutely right with that. But we also didn't see any Golgari in Pro Tour,
which was a wrong prediction by me because I had said that I thought that tournament was going to be dominated by Golgari, and that's exactly what dominated GP Milwaukee.
Yes.
Although it did not win.
That is true. 4 of the top 8, I believe, were green-black Golgari.
5, I think.
5? Okay.
4 or 5, whatever.
We also have a couple Jeskai control lists with Niv Mizzet, Rekindling Phoenix. In fact, Adrian Sullivan's Jeskai control list is the one that actually took the top.
It is. Interesting deck, that one. Running 3 copies of Teferi, main board. Of course, just a complete powerhouse of a card, still dominating the standard meta, especially when backed up by proper instant and sorcery control. But interestingly enough, Adrian Sullivan's Jeskai control only ran 2 Enigma Drakes, 1 copy of Rekindling Phoenix, but 4 copies of Niv Mizzet, the Payarun.
A lot of people were worried that you weren't going to be able to cast Niv Mizzet outside of a dedicated blue-red list, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here we have a Jeskai list that is running 4 in the main deck. So obviously, you can cast it.
Sure. I mean, we've got enough dual lands, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got Glacial Fortress, got some Clifftop Retreats, Sacred Foundry, Steam Vents, Sulfur Falls, all accessible right now.
We also have 4 treasure maps, which definitely help.
Oh, yeah.
Not only with the top card filtering, but also just being able to flip and get those 3 treasures that you can then flip into an early Niv Mizzet.
Yeah.
It also just helps fix your mana for it too. But great source of card draw also as you're starting to get into that late game.
Yep. Sullivan's deck list also had an interesting sideboard in Settle the Wreckage, couple copies of Banefire, Cleansing Nova, Disdainful Stroke, Ixalan's Binding.
2 Star of Extinction.
2 Star of Extinction making it in, which I thought was really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mean, Star of Extinction is a very good card.
Yeah.
It's just expensive. It's 7 mana. So, I'm assuming it's because of those treasure maps that you're able to generate enough mana to be able to then cast it. I mean, you're also playing a control list, so the games go long. But what's really good about that is it helps you control those planeswalkers that, like Vivian Reed, that would blow up your Niv Mizzet or your Rekindling Phoenix.
I mean, it is the worst kind of board wipe.
Right.
Each creature takes 20 damage. Each planeswalker takes 20 damage.
And you destroy land.
And you destroy a land. Think about that's Value Town. Why don't we play 4 of those in every deck we build from now on?
Because it's 7 mana.
Yeah. Yeah, red doesn't like 7 mana dedicated spells like that. But
no.
Jeskai Control certainly does. Also 2 copies of Lyra Dawnbringer and 1 Spell Swindle making it into the sideboard. I wonder, there's not really much available in terms of beyond the later round plays for him.
Right.
But I wonder how well maybe that Spell Swindle performed throughout the course of the tournament.
Yeah, that is.
You may never know.
That is really interesting. I wonder if he anticipated there being a lot more, like, Zakama ramp decks or something like that in the meta, or if he thought that 6 mana Vraska was going to be a bigger deal, or at least a big deal. So maybe that's one of those cards that you would bring in for those types of matchups where you can get some really good value out of it. But I don't know.
Some recognizable names in the top 8.
Yep.
As well at GP Milwaukee, we got Seth Manfield running a Golgari mid-range deck. Interesting that he was running copies of Karn as well as Vivian Reed. 5 Planeswalkers in that deck, and Wild Growth Walker main board with 4 options for Explorer and the Merfolk Branch Walker and also the Jade Light Ranger.
I found really interesting with his list is he ran 3 Carnage Tyrants main.
Yeah,
that takes some cojones. I think
it does.
That's an expensive card to run 3 of. I can see why he would, considering that you have a total of 12 creatures that will either generate mana for you or dig through your deck to find more mana for you.
Yeah, the Explore triggers really do help kind of accelerate that access to 6 mana. He's also running Mana Nerds in there. But Owen Curtainwall, also very popular, well-known Magic player, making the top 8 at GP Milwaukee with a very dedicated Izzet's Drake deck, 4 Arclight Phoenixes, 4 Crackling Drakes, 4 Goblin Electromancers to reduce the costs of the combined 26 instant and sorcery spells.
And 1 Mirage Conjecture.
Yeah, tell me what you think about that card. I know that you've thought about it.
Yeah, I really like that card. It's also being currently used in the Rainbow Lich deck as a way to get infinite turns. It's a very powerful card. The fact that you can double up your spells when it finally pops is really good, especially in a list like this, where if you have a Goblin Electromancer out or 2, all of your spells all of a sudden cost 1 or 2 less mana to cast. And since you're doubling up those spells, you can get, a double up Charted Course, which will then draw you 4 cards, and you can get a double up Lava Coil and a double up Discovery Dispersal, where all of a sudden you've now cast 3, 4, 5 spells for 4 or 5 mana.
Interestingly enough, too, in Terton Wald's deck, looking at his sideboard, a card that's near and dear to my heart in the standard meta, an Entrancing Melody, making 2-copy appearance in the sideboard. But also look at that Murmuring Mystic making its way into the sideboard there as an option for some additional staving off of aggro, or maybe even a threat plan of our own.
Yeah.
In terms of being able to board that in. It seems like we're kind of on track with some of the shenanigans that we were trying to pull over the course of the last couple of weeks. But then again, look, 1 copy of Star of Extinction in his sideboard as well in the control matchup.
Yeah, that's really interesting. He also is running Rao, is it Viceroy, in the deck, or at least in the sideboard, excuse me. That's a really interesting choice for him as well, considering he's running, what would you say, 24? Or no, 26 instant sorcerers. I'm almost surprised that he's not running the Conjecture in the sideboard and running Rao in its place, because you can just get so much more value out of digging with your Rao. But we've been seeing a lot of these Star of Extinctions in the sideboards of these decks. Maybe that's the reason why he didn't want to run it main, was he was too worried of something like that, or just being overrun by creatures to then destroy his walker.
The Star of Extinction, I think, just kind of represents a reset for some of these control decks, right? Drake's is its own special type of aggro. It's a very tempo-heavy deck. It wants to go 1-for-1 interaction with you and then get ahead by resolving a Drake when you're either low on resources in your hand, or maybe just spent a good deal of your resources trying to resolve a spell against a counterspell, right? Also in the top 8, we've got Jacob Tilk's mono white aggro. Interestingly enough, a white weenie deck running 22 planes. That's considerably more than we've seen in the competitive lists over the course of the last few weeks.
Yeah, and 25 creatures with 11 enchantments. And really, 8 of those 11 enchantments are technically creatures, because they create creatures.
Oh, they're token generators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
History of Benalia, still a beast regard.
Legion's Landing as well.
Yeah.
You could, especially with a list like this, flip it very early.
Yep.
And either catch yourself a 4th land if you're running low, or just be able to pump out tokens whenever you need it. So really, the only removal in this deck is 3 Conclave Tribunal. In a deck like this, you could easily cast this on turn 2 or 3 if you need to.
Adanto Vanguard really making itself still very much known in the meta. It's an incredibly good uncommon as a turn 2 drop going into attack on turn 3. It becomes a nearly impossible to remove threat unless you're burning some type of exile effect on making sure that it's off the battlefield. And then, of course, Pride of Conquerors, as far as instant speed ascend interaction with an Alpha Strike, ending games there. Probably don't need more than 2 copies. A really well-constructed deck there. In the sideboard, about what you would expect.
Mm-hmm. I really like the 4 Tocatli Honor Guards, definitely for that Golgari matchup.
Mm-hmm.
It just really shuts down their list. What I also like to see is he's running 1 planes in his sideboard.
Well, yeah. I mean, if he's trying to bring in Lyra Dawnbringer, additional Johnnies, make sure that he's maintaining curve into Shalai, etc., that you're going to probably need to bump that to 23 lands for consistency.
Yep, definitely.
So, yeah, GP Milwaukee came off really well. We got a local player here in Kansas City, goes by the name John Diesel. We see him out at Friday Night Magics all the time. We've picked up some competitive games versus him. He headed out to GP of Milwaukee. Just following up on his stats, looks like he went 5-8.
Also, one thing to just kind of touch in here, if you notice on a lot of the Golgari mid-range, not a lot of Assassin's Trophies. Assassin's Trophy is not really making a huge splash in Standard right now.
I think the reason that Assassin's Trophy is not making a splash in Standard is that the competitive community does not like the fact that you are fueling an untapped land for your opponent in terms of removal.
True, but also if you're going to be using it late game against some of your opponent's best things, getting that extra land really doesn't seem to matter that much. Right? Like, if they already have 7 lands, what's an 8th land? Especially if a lot of their stuff is going to be 3 to 5 to cast anyways.
Sure.
So it's kind of interesting to me that we're not seeing at least 1 or 2 in these lists. There are a couple of these lists that have them in the sideboard, but instead they're opting to run Cast Down or Vraska's Contempt. Mm-hmm. So my assumption is that when Vraska's Contempt leaves Standard, Abrupt Decay will slide right into that area for that. But I mean, it's
not Abrupt Decay. Assassin's Trophy.
Excuse me, Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah, same difference.
Yeah,
don't matter.
We'll slide right in there. But I mean, it isn't a good early gameplay. I'll give you that. It is not a good early gameplay.
It's not exactly the spell that you want to burn on tamping down a Llanowar Elf.
Right.
It's just not what you want to do. You're defeating the purpose there.
Right.
Yeah. So Assassin's Trophy will find a home. My feeling is that we're going to see it in Jund as a core removal, especially as we get into Ravnica Allegiance and we get some Rakdos cards kind of coming into the mix here. You'll certainly begin to see Assassin's Trophy truly utilized. But right now, I think the community's perception is that we are not using that because of the ramp that it offers our opponent, right? And what is a land? A land is the difference between winning and losing the game. And giving an opponent the ability to search for a color that they need in such a multicolor laden format like Standard is right now could potentially be the end of the game for you. The last thing a Jeskai control player needs is more mana, right? When you're going to remove it to Fairy and they've already got another one in hand anyway. That's not to be pessimistic. I think Assassin's Trophy is a great card. It's certainly got its uses. But we're going to need to see some land destruction in order for that to really kind of be something truly effective. You're going to want to be able to remove permanents in more than just one way for a 1-for-1 interaction.
Or another type of mind sensor effect.
Yeah, something like that, right? Or maybe we can put a clamp on the lands. Who knows what Magic's going to bring us over the course of the next couple expansions.
Just kind of spitballing some jank here. We do have a card in Standard right now.
Unmoored Ego?
Unmoored Ego, thank you. Or you can hit lands with that. So if you hit their basic lands, Assassin's Trophy is free to play pretty much anytime you want.
Interesting.
But that's serious jank. I don't recommend anybody doing that. However, one thing that I had really considered, so we have a card right now called Old Growth Dryad.
Yeah.
1 green for a 3/3.
It's another one of those cards that people just never played because the perception of giving your opponent a land.
Mm-hmm. Especially very early like that.
Yeah.
It seems bad. Well, what if you're running that with something like Pelt Collector, right? So you play Pelt Collector, you play Old Growth Dryad, you grow your Pelt Collector. Sure, your opponent gets a land, but you're playing a lot of low to the ground stuff, maybe like Jade Light Ranger, that type of a thing. And then you run Assassin's Trophy in that list. So now they've been able to get out their lands and they then drop their big thing early. But hey, it doesn't matter. You have an Assassin's Trophy. You just go ahead and zap that thing.
Unless it's a Carnage Tower.
It's true, but there is Detection Tower in the format right now.
Or a Vine Mare.
So again, Detection
Tower. Or a
Tower.
Nullhide Ferox.
Again, Detection Tower Ferox doesn't really matter anyways because you can pay the 2.
Or an Arboretum Elemental.
True. Again, Detection Tower is in the format. You can run that if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because
and every opponent you play is playing mono green beats.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right.
Every opponent.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I worry about only the important things.
So, something like that I think could be kind of an interesting list to see. It is more of a low to the ground aggro.
I like it.
Style of deck.
Yeah, you should build it.
Yeah, I probably will.
Yeah, let's see a list like that. That sounds good. You could even side in the detection towers. It really wouldn't matter,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. Thanks for spitballing some jank, Debo.
Hey, that's my jank quota for the day.
So congratulations to Adrian Sullivan for winning GP Milwaukee. We will continue to surveil your progress with Jeskai Control, as I'm sure that's going to have a substantial impact on the meta moving forward. Knowing that Teferi is still dominating a lot of that game, seeing a lot of those Golgari mid-range decks in the top 8 kind of confirms some of your suspicions, I think, initially regarding where the meta was going. I think the Pro Tour kind of caught us all off guard, and people were playing decks, or a group of those professionals were playing decks that caught the meta and a lot of the preparation that those teams had put together off guard as well. Maybe that's why Red-White was so dominant.
Right.
Moving on.
So Ultimate Masters. So as you guys may have remember from our first podcast, we kind of reamed into Ultimate Masters a little bit. I still think the price is a little too high. There is a lot of good value in the set. If you can pick it up still around that 240 range, 240, 260, I think it's a good buy. I wouldn't go much higher than that. But we did get some cool new reprints. Back to Basics is a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely needed to see that come back from Urza's Saga.
We do also have some really cool deck building archetypes that you can do in draft. One of the cool ones is Seismic Assault and Life from the Loam. If you can draft those together, you got a really cool deck right there.
Oh yeah, really some of the best.
Mm-hmm. You've also got cards like Entomb and Goryo's Vengeance seeing the reprints. So with those, you can go and fetch your big Eldrazi or whatever big spell that you have. That's a legendary. Put it into the graveyard. Goryo Vengeance it back out at instant speed. 3 mana to be able to do that at your opponent's instep seems pretty good.
Yeah, bringing back an Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, or a Kozilek Butcher of Truth, or hell, even an Emrakul, and bringing it right to the battlefield, annihilating 4, annihilating 6, essentially ending the game in any certainly limited style format.
Yeah, definitely. We did also see a couple of downshifted rarity cards that is going to make a big splash in other formats like Pauper.
I don't play that peasant format. Oh wait, peasant's uncommons too. That's why.
Nobody really plays the peasant.
Go
format,
ahead. Just go ahead.
So with Pauper, we have foil being downshiftted to a common. So what people don't know what foil is it's an instant speed 2 blue. You may discard an island card and another card rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Counter target spell. So what's really crazy about this is, mono blue has already been a very dominant deck.
You were saying it was really, really kind of oppressive in terms of playing Pauper. I know you play a lot of Pauper. It's a format that really does interest you. Kind of draws you in.
Yeah, it's kind of like Legacy Light. A lot of people like to compare it to that because you get to have your brainstorms and your ponders and things like that. And it feels, it's one of those things that it feels powerful without the price tag, So with foil, mono blue now has another huge piece that they can put in there. So it already has Daze, it already has Gush.
Right.
Both of which return islands to your hand, if you so wish, to subvert its mana cost. And now with foil, so let's say somebody does something, you Gush in response, you pick up 2 islands to draw 2 cards. Now your hand is full. You draw into a foil. You're able to cast your foil for free by discarding one of the islands you picked up and another random card.
So countering spells is all good. Tempo game is all good in a Pauper game like that. But what's the win condition in mono blue and Pauper? Delvar of Secrets?
Yeah, Delvar could be a good one. There's the Skyfish, the one with like affinity for islands.
Oh, okay.
I've seen a list like that. It's more of a tempo list.
Sure.
Where it runs that. Basically, Delvar. though, is kind of more of that the blue finisher for that list.
I would think so.
Especially since it's so cheap to cast.
Yeah, super cheap to cast, comes down early, persistent aggro threat, just a matter of probably 6-7 turns and the game's over, right? And you just control your opponent to that point.
So getting back to Ultimate Masters here, we also see Resurrection. I believe that one has been downshifted to a common. 2 white, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That could be an interesting thing to see in Pauper. They have some recursion effects. I just don't think they've ever had one that's really that cheap before. So that's kind of nice. We are also kind of seeing a madness theme in this draft environment as well. So you have things like Fiery Temper and Faithless Looting in the same format.
And Bridge from Below.
And Bridge from Below.
Which is a modern staple now, right? With those Vengevine decks. Vengevine is also in there.
A little bit of speculation here. They are going to be printing Lab Maniac and Living Lore in the set. I am going to put a gander that if we haven't already seen all of the rares, we're going to see Enter the Infinite at reprinted in the set as well.
Which was the first deck that Debo ever built himself, right? In terms of an interest in the game. I recently posted an article about that on www.lancego.com. Please check that out. It's called A Tale of Two Dudes.
We also have Voted Druid and Woodfall Primus. So I'm also going to be going out on a limb, assuming they haven't released all of the rares that they're going to be printing. That one legendary creature that says -1/-1 counters can't be placed on creatures you control. I can't remember the name of it, but
it's a legend. Green legend.
Yeah.
Druid, Dryad. Anyway, Daybreak Coronet seeing a reprint, which is fantastic. Chainer's Edict coming back. Gamble coming back.
Ruined Halo and Glenalindra.
Yep.
Vexen Devil.
Eldrazi Conscription getting a reprint.
All Is Dust seeing a reprint as well.
Yeah, All Is Dust kind of needed a reprint. I think that card was a little outside of its acceptable price range in terms of accessibility.
Another combo that you can do in draft is Dark Depths and Thespian Stage.
Yeah, absolutely. It automatically removes all the counters once you create a copy of it. It doesn't actually copy the amount of counters and immediately flips into the 2020 Merit Lodge.
Yep. Yeah. And then with Life from the Loam in the format, you can just keep doing it over and over again.
Keep doing it.
Yep.
Over and over again. Yep. As if you needed more than one indestructible trampling flyer thing named Merit Lodge.
It is legendary, though. So you only want to do it if they can, handle your...
If you needed more than one Merit Lodge. But you may. You never know. Hey, we've heard of stranger things, right? Either way, the Ultimate Master set for me, I'm going to kind of echo some of what I said in episode 101 of the main phase. And that is that I feel very, very strongly about Wizards of the Coast making these high value cards in terms of both desirability for play, but also the cost of those cards in terms of high value. Making those accessible by increasing the print run and then the availability to the community is a good thing. I want people to be able to play with the cards that they want to play with. But the price tag and the MSRP kind of was off-putting for me. And I know that you're going to sink some money into the set. You're an avid collector, and I completely understand that. But I will not be sinking money into this set and saving that $300 back for some Ravnica Allegiance.
Yeah, and also for someone like you, it doesn't quite make sense for you to buy a set like this, considering that you already have play sets of most of these cards, if not all of them. For someone who's been like really entrenched in the game for a long time, who has been holding on to their collections versus flipping it into new cards, this set is not really for you unless you really, really want that super art cards or something like that.
There's a number of cards that I could probably flesh out just seeing reprints here, right?
But you would buy that as a single.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So for someone like me, I like to do this with draft. You and I will get together and do a draft with this.
Yeah. We will.
But for me, I am still building my collection. So it makes sense for me to kind of buy some of these sets to flesh out that collection and then buy the singles after I kind of get a box or so of these types of sets. But I would not have bought it had I not found a good deal.
Well, may your ultimate box topper be the best of ultimate box toppers.
Oh, I hope.
May it top all the box toppers. All right. So, great. Yeah. Ultimate Masters. How about just some finishing thoughts from you, Debo?
So yeah, I'm of the mindset of if you can find this around 240, 260, it's a good buy, especially if you don't already have these cards. If you're going to be someone who's like JB, who is an active collector, I would not sink money into the set. However, if you're someone like me who's still kind of fresh into the game, but you want to have some of these cards and you also enjoy the draft environment, definitely pick this up. It's looking like to be a pretty fun draft, especially some of the cool combos that you can do. There's also some really good archetypes that are forming that we kind of touched on a bit, but there's even more that we did not touch on.
And there's cards that have yet to be spoiled. The full list is not out. We've got about 103 total cards right now. We scrolled through that list a little bit earlier today. I think that it sums it up well there. If you're building your collection, want access to premium cards like are being printed in the last Masters set for the foreseeable future, then maybe this is a good buy for you.
But not at $335.
But not at $335. Box topper and all, I just can't get behind that price. I understand it. I get it. The tremendous amount of value that's there. Last I'll say is not for me.
Yep.
Whammy.
And again, not for me at that price. If you get it a little bit cheaper, I think that.
And I think you did get a little bit cheaper on your pre-order, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I actually got 2 boxes at $240.
It's good.
Yeah,
that's a really good buy.
Yeah, so that's about the rate for previous master sets. So
yeah, I mean,
excluding the 2 that we will not name, Masters 25 and Iconic Masters.
Those that shall not be named.
Which I just named. But.
Yeah. I appreciate you doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to the streaming schedule. We have finalized our studio space. We'll start sharing some images of that as that happens. We're going to be putting up some soundproof foam. We're going to get some streams set up on Twitch. We're going to be more and more active and involved on the socials. Really going to turn this Landsago platform into a full media content generation platform, not only talking about Magic the Gathering, but its competitions, its community, maybe even going a bit deeper and starting to focus on LGSs, maybe doing some traveling, trying to get out to some of those LGSs and playing Friday Night Magics across the country, and certainly at events as we continue to grow Landsago.
That's true. And as JB said, we are now in our dedicated studio space. We still have, as he alluded to, have a few things to tweak. We're also going to be getting some cameras here so we can start doing some video podcasting as well as streaming. We're still kind of debating whether or not we're going to be doing 2 or 3 nights a week for streaming, but we definitely want to still be doing like video deck techs, things like that. As creative director at Landsago, I'm definitely trying to kind of streamline how we approach creating those types of assets. That way we can pump out as much content to you guys as we can, and still have it be of high quality content. So we really don't want something to go out there that's lackluster.
Right. Being again, as I mentioned in the article that came out on Monday, being film school grads and having done film and media production before, there's a standard of excellence and a commitment to that standard of excellence that I think both of us hold ourselves to. And so to really start generating that content, it needs to be on a consistent schedule so that those people who want to follow Landsago, want to be founding members of that community, have an opportunity to contribute in meaningful ways and find entertainment through what we're doing to entertain ourselves. I think that about sums it up. More streaming content coming, more announcements coming for sure. And the last thing I'd like to close with is from the moment we start streaming, we're going to put an arrangement for a giveaway. That giveaway is going to be announced in a future podcast episode, probably our first video podcast ever.
Well, folks, thanks again for joining us with episode 102 of the main phase. And we appreciate you guys coming and listening to us, and we hopefully will see you again next time. This is JB and Debo signing off.